Hey, this is the Recovering Borderline. I'm back. It's not as easy doing a podcast. I have to say. I mean, I am technically savvy. I don't think that sounds right. But anyway, I just wanted to say thanks for at least watching and interacting. Kind of gives me a little bit of hope that I'm just not talking to myself. And I was going to carry on with the criteria of the borderline from the DSM-V because it has kind of sparked some interaction, and the only reason why I call it criteria is because that, well, how should I put it? Is that to diagnose any mental health diagnosis, there has to be certain things or quotients or ideas and the medical profession calls it criteria. It's like, well, to be a schizophrenic, you have to, there has to be a time period of, hearing voices, and there has to be a certain age that you start hearing voices. Now, these are just averages and means, but I have to defer to the thousands of doctors, specialists, neurologists, psychologists, psychiatrists that have put years of their life into creating and keeping up with the DSM-V. So I know it sounds like we are, just kind of cramming people into how should I put it, into a box. And somebody, let me know that, and I understand we're not just boxes. We're not just, things to tick off, literally and figuratively. So where I left off with is the criteria of what makes a borderline is, first one, the frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. Now, the second one I talked about, I think, in the third episode. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is this criteria is years and years of research of people who have studied us, and they have found that these are the 9 top things that differentiate the borderline personality disorder from any other personality disorder. And it defines us because personality disorders, there's 3 groups of us. There's 3 groups of us, brethren. There's the cluster A, cluster B, and cluster C. We fit into the cluster B. And the other personality disorders, which are in the cluster B, are narcissism and, I don't have the book in front of me, so I'm not going to, spitball. I look at it this way. If I have a book, I'm not up to memorizing everything. So what I'm saying is that these top 9 things are the things that differentiate us from everybody else, from all the other personality disorders. And so these top 9 criteria are what the people that I deem quite, more intelligent, have more specialty, who have done a lot more research about me and who know more about the, how should I put it? The things that make my diagnosis important to me or make me important to the diagnosis. So I kind of hope that helps a little bit. Please let me know in your comments, and we can go from there. Hopefully we'll have more dialogue and that we can have more of a conversation. I'm hoping to put out a video a week, and hopefully as it gets better and easier to do that, I'll be putting out more. So please be patient. Put in the comments, say, hey, look, I'm interested. You've got a captive audience. Give us more. Anyway, as I go on. So, the first criteria was frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. And we talked about that. The second criteria is a pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships characterized by alternating between extremes of idealization and devaluation. Now, what that means to me and how it was put to me as a patient is that if, say for instance, whether it's an intimate relationship or a friendship or somebody at work, it's basically if somebody slights you or if somebody doesn't, like when you first start dating somebody, you might want to go a million miles an hour, and you might, after the first date, you're like, well, why didn't they call me back the next day? Do I have to wait? There's that 3-day rule, and you're like chomping at the bit. Like, okay, do I text? Do I do this? Do I do that? And do I wait? Do I call? And I've learned to temper that because most people don't like other people blowing up their phone and saying, why haven't you called me? We had such a good time. We had such a good connection. We, and basically you're saying, I'm so desperate for a relationship. Why don't you call me back? And to be honest with you, even though we want to go a million miles an hour, basically other people don't. They want to process the interaction that they had with somebody. They want to be like, was it fun? Was I drunk? Was I this? And sometimes there's people that overthink it. I used to talk myself out of waiting. I'd be like, you know what? If this person likes me, they like me. Okay? There's nothing I can do about it. If they like me, then they like me. And it's almost like I would, how should I put it? Like push people so, not away, but I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to call them and just say, hey, I had a really good time. Hope to see you again. Blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I did that even before I got home or when I got home and left a message on their voicemail before texting. And then when texting came along, it was like, hi, I had a really good time. Hope to hear from you. And then I'd be like, okay, I haven't heard from them. Why didn't they, why didn't I, blah, blah, blah. Why? And so I honestly don't know where it came from for me. I can only speculate because, I'd see my dad, he would call people, whether it be business associates or people that were working on our house or whatever. And it's almost like if you didn't respond in time to what the time he thought you should respond, he was blowing up your phone. And I don't know, maybe it's because I watched him do it, or it's because I was just absolutely so insecure in that I had to know now whether you liked me or not. It was almost a exaggerated, it was that note. It was, remember in grade school when somebody would, send you a note and be like, do you like me? Check yes or no. And, checked back, and you checked the box, and usually it was yes, and you send it back to them. And but it got to be like that on steroids. I could not wait. I couldn't wait. It wasn't like, oh, I hope he calls, or I hope they call, or I hope the recruiter calls, or why isn't the recruiter calling? Why isn't he calling? Why aren't they calling me back? They should know if they like me or not, or they should know if they want me to work for them. So, I don't know how it came along. The only thing I can say is it was my insecurity. I wanted to know now. It was like, who was it in Willy Wonka, Veruca Salt? The one that wanted the golden goose, whose father owned the nut company, and he bought thousands and thousands of boxes of Wonka bars, and she's like, Daddy, I want it now. Well, that was me in any type of relationship, anything. And so you idealize the person. When you first meet them, they're like, oh my, there's nothing that they do wrong. They make me laugh. They tell the right stories. They have enough money. They fit all of your criteria for the one. And then when they don't, respond to you, then you're like, oh, well, what's wrong with me? They don't think I'm good enough. And then their stock plummets because they slighted you. You could have, to be honest with you, could have had sex with them on the first date, and they got what they wanted. And you thought that was the basis of a perfect relationship, and then you were going to ride off into the sunset with them because you showed them that you were good in bed, or you had good sexual proclivity. Well, as we all know, it doesn't happen in a lot of relationships. I can't say never, because I'm sure that there would be somebody who says, oh, I had sex on the first date with somebody and we've been together ever since, and it's been 45 years. Well, you know what? Good for you. But it doesn't happen for everybody, especially for us borderlines. I don't know what it is, but we want what somebody else has so badly that it's almost like if you sat back and looked at what your best friend has, or what you think they have is awesome, there's probably a little bit more strife and a little bit more struggle to what they have than what they say. Now, they could be your best friend, and they could be honest and say, you know what, it took me a long time. We dated forever before we got married, or but they're not us. And so what happens is we dig our own hole. We have a great couple of dates, if it goes that far, and then we start picking out China patterns and places to live and all that kind of stuff. And actually, we pick the people And it's so weird. It's almost like we pick the people that do us the most injustice, who use us. We pick the people who are predators, who are like, oh, wow, she's pretty, she's cute, she's fiery, you know, good in bed. Or she was good in bed, now I'm gonna ghost her. You know, I got what I wanted. Or he got what he got what he wanted, she got what she wanted, blah, blah, blah. And then the devaluation. We idealize them, we're like, oh, they're the best. And then the devaluation, when they slight us. That is when they've taken their toys and gone home. When they've blocked our calls and they go radio silent. Now, for anybody, whether it be a boarder or another person, not having closure is the worst. You know, I was going to sprinkle it with expletives, but I really don't want YouTube to... I really don't want them to close me down before I begin. But, you know, closure is the worst. I mean, non-closure is the worst. When somebody just leaves and you know that they're alive. I'm not talking like all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, they're dead, you know, but I'm just saying when somebody does not give you closure and doesn't say, you know, listen, it's not going to work. It's not going to, I was a real schmuck. I took advantage of you. Nobody's going to say that. But it would be nice if somebody said, hey, it's not going to work out. And then for me, I was okay with that. If somebody just said, you know what? It's not going to work. I would have backed off. I know that there's some people out there, and they don't necessarily have to be boarders, who will, you know, go overboard and cause harm and cause issue with the person that harmed them. And so what I'm trying to say is that the criteria that I'm talking about is not just boxes that your therapist has ticked off or checked off or whatever. It's just to help them. They've just found patterns of how certain personality disorders act. That's all it is. It sucks. It does. It sucks. It really does. And the one thing that has helped me is just having a stable and supportive therapist. You don't know how many times I sat across from that person and they said, I don't have, they might say, well, I have anxiety. I don't have this. I can see that it really sucks, and it's going to suck until it doesn't. But I'm here to support you, and I'm here to help you. So hang in there, guys. Really, really hang in there. Because the fact that you're hopefully listening to this and maybe listening to other podcasts, please read. Please ask questions. You can change. It doesn't happen overnight. I've been dealing with this shit since I was 25 years old. Or even before that, before I was diagnosed. So, what I'm trying to say is that these are my thoughts. These are my personal insights. And I hope to have a dialogue. We'll go through the thick and thin of this together. But you know what? we all come through the other side. We all do. And you can pause for a while because you don't have to go through it full force. Take your time. Journal. Sing. Pretend you're on stage singing to 8 million people. I don't know. So, anyway, thank you. If you're listening, thank you for the comment. I hope to get more. And good luck. You guys can do this. We all can. Goodbye.